Do you agree with Dre's approach to new media?
I don't know. First of all, Molly, I don't know what new media is. Okay, I don't.
Mhm.
I don't know what the media is doing that I didn't deal with as a player, or JJ didn't deal with as a player, or we didn't deal with coming up. We had reporters and beat writers that hated all the time. We had people on television that didn't know certain particular things about the game, and they made outlandish statements. That's been happening since the beginning of time. Guess what? I never made it personal. And that's just me in particular. I ain't
So I I don't think it's about personal. It's about the players calling out about this relationship. It is not because the players in the past have also dealt with the media being outrageous or sometimes even controlling the narrative of the future of some players' careers. It's not only about that. In fact, it is because it have been happening for so long that it kind of has to stop. I think is this is what Draymond is saying that new media is the players, not only the players, because even he said that Stephen A got some new media in him. So I think is not letting the the media as the narratives to control the players' destiny, to control what their careers are going to look like, or or how much money they can make just because someone is saying something about him, you know. So this is what I think new media is, because the way I see it, I've been consuming uh, sports shows for a while now, and it does have some wild shit. It does have, and so my field is linguistics and neuroscience and also psychology and stuff. So there's so many things that I don't think is necessarily healthy or even moral to do. Sometimes it gets way out of hand. And this is what I think he's talking about the media, that this gotta stop. Like this absolute control of how they are perceived just because a handful of people are talking about them in the media. Because listen, if you are a small player, like a role player, a player that is almost always on small contracts, if someone say something bad about him, that can definitely hinders the projection of his career and sometimes even end it. If he got an opportunity, for example, to do great and suddenly he doesn't, and the media just slander him. So what you imagine could happen? You can drive this narrative of, oh, you gotta be resilient, but I don't gotta be resilient just because you are hating, you know? I gotta be resilient because I gotta be resilient. That doesn't mean that it's okay to hate in somebody, you know? And those players in the past, just because they didn't said anything, doesn't mean that the players now can't say anything. If if anything, they should also be encouraged to do so, because they were they were way more, they had to deal with way more than the players right now, in a sense that at least the players right now have a platform to speak. The Draymond used the YouTube to speak. The players then, I imagine there's so many obstacles and like I don't know. I would be assuming at this point,
ain't
but yeah.
saying Draymond shouldn't. I ain't saying KD shouldn't when they clap back. It just never could be personal for me because you are not doing what I'm doing. And when you're wrong, if we can have a legit
You
conversation
see,
about it, and
it
I
is
can
not
tell you
about
why
being
you're wrong,
personal. It's
or
about
you can
being
tell me why
control.
you said something,
It's about
cool, I'm all
power.
for that. But the whole new media idea, like I love these guys having their meetings. I love that they have podcasts. I love that they can get their own word out, their own version
Yeah.
of how they see things transpiring and what's happening. But opinions and critiques and articles have been written since the beginning of time. Okay? It's going to continue to happen. Beat writers, analysts, commentators, personalities on television are going to say things about you or your team or people that you're close to that you don't like. They're going to give an opinion that you don't like or you might not even respect. And I am all for you clapping back. Just don't this whole let's not get this scenario started like something that's happening in media that ain't been happening forever. Okay? Now it's just social media. Now it's
This is the thing. Like, just because it has been happening doesn't mean that it has to be happening. You know?
just 100 million people see it immediately, as opposed to it taking a couple of days to circulate through a news cycle unless it's by
And we are not even considering the mental aspects of it, like how much a player can be affected by the stories that are being told by them. The people often see athletes like robots or something, like they don't have emotions. They are humans. You know, they are humans. They have emotions, sensations, and feelings. So if every day that you turn on the TV and you see and hear something bad about yourself, you're going to feel bad, man. And that can affect your performance, which can enhances even more the narratives against you. So it snowballs in a way. So yeah, the mental aspect of the athletes needs to be said, definitely.
a writer that everybody pays attention to. Players have been getting criticized, critiqued, talked about wrong, given opinions about them being wrong when people don't know the full story
Yeah.
since the beginning of time.
But
You
Marcus,
choose how you respond to it. But this ain't
yeah,
no new media.
and I'm gonna let you jump in, but I feel like it's not that old media's changed; it's that there is new media. Is kind of where we're going. And when you're talking,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying, say it's
As
15
far as
years
them
ago
having
or so.
voices,
No, I'm just saying now everything's different, right? Like there's more and more podcasts, more and more social media. So old media, if I'm old media, right, traditional, that hasn't changed. But now the new media exists because of all these other platforms. That's what I'm gathering. But JJ,
Let's see what JJ has to
So
say.
you're right, Molly, and Marcus. You're also right in the sense that players and athletes have been criticized and discussed ad nauseum since the beginning of time. That's I'm not going to argue with that at all. But you and I are the same generation. We played against each other in AAU basketball. Houston Hoops versus Boo Williams.
You did.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Boo Williams, yeah.
Can we get
You had Carlos Hurt,
Yeah.
your point guard. He was a talent. He was a talent.
See
I
her?
need some
Shooter,
photos.
baby.
I need some
Yeah.
photos of a young JJ and Swagger.
Yeah, but
JJ was the truth. Pulling.
Yeah, I was a killer.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, look what he went on to do. You did it right too, Marcus.
You did all right too. But we are the first generation
You did it right.
has had to deal with what media is today, and I think that's the distinguishing factor here. You know, there's like
got
three
you.
parts. There's three parts of media. How we sort of talk about media now. It's traditional media. That's your newspapers. That's I'm not going to say shows like this, but that's 6 o'clock local news. That's Sports Center. That's sort of traditional media.
Radio.
Columnists, sports radio. That's traditional media. Then you have aggregate media, which is the worst kind of media, the worst kind of media. And we go on this show,
Explain
and we
to the
have to
audience
deal with
aggregate media.
Aggregate media is when someone. Clutch Points is an awful site. It's an awful platform. Clutch Points, for instance, they take something that I say or that Kevin Durant says. They take it like there's out of context, and then there's out of context.
Yep.
That
Out of
then goes
context. Yeah,
viral
I'm with
on
you.
50.
So what I think he's saying is that by the internet, there's so many opportunities for people to become a group and they can say whatever, and I don't know, they could get a voice and those things happen. But he said that shows like this isn't traditional media? Curious.
50 to 100
Very
different
curious.
aggregate media sites, fan-sided. All these, they're not. It's not real media, but it's part of media now. Aggregate media. Bleacher Report started it 12, 15 years ago. Whenever they started, that essentially is what aggregate media is. Then
Yep.
you have social media, and this is where every single person has a platform, a voice on Instagram, on YouTube, on Twitter, of course, right? So we are the first generation that has had to deal with these two new forms of media, where it is constant, and even this network, like PTI started this debate format,
Yeah.
but the 80s, the 90s, I used to watch ESPN every day. There would be a 6 or 7 o'clock Sports Center, and that would rerun till 12, and then you had strongman competition.
Yep.
You had strongman competition in the afternoon. Then you had a 6 o'clock
Late
Sports
night
Center.
play
And a lot of it was
reruns.
news telling.
Yeah.
It was news telling, reporting on the score. Let's give a preview of tonight's game. It is not the current format of what ESPN is. So over the last 15 years, and it all started pretty much with social media and these debate shows, our generation of athletes have had to deal with a different type of media pressure, media scrutiny, and media attention. You cannot argue that.
Yep.
You cannot argue that.
Facts.
The
Facts.
new media, I'm hoping to get clarification
Yeah.
next week from Draymond on his definition of new media. But the new media, to me, I think in its simplest form, is just athlete-driven content. Athletes using whatever platform they have, whether that is social media, whether
Okay,
it's
it
podcast,
can
whether
be,
that
but
is people like me and you coming on
this
these shows
has been
and
happening,
getting
you know?
into the debate
But
and expressing and using our own experiences to form opinions. That's essentially what new
But I
media
guess,
is,
you know?
in my eyes. You brought up something that I just want to point on that is so important to understand and to be cautious of, and that is personal bias. Marcus, you and I are not allowed to have
this can cost so much money for an athlete. So much money.
personal bias when we get on these shows.
Can't
I
do
wish
it.
I could.
Can't
I
do
wish
it.
I could. I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to have it. It would be unethical, and I wouldn't be doing my job anymore. I don't bring any personal bias to this, and that is the cautionary tale for any athlete looking to get into this new media.
Another thing is, do we know that everybody's like JJ? That doesn't have a personal bias? You know, one of those guys would like act and driven a narrative just because they don't like the guy, just so the guy make less money. Is that crazy to think about? I don't know.
Space.
I don't
We've
know.
seen examples of this over the last couple months. Your credibility is lost. It's lost and gone when you bring personal bias into the equation.
We hope so.
100%.
We hope so. But like Skip is the most personal biased guy in the media. And yeah, so